The function f of x is graphed. Find the domain and range of f of x. Well, this graph is this blue line. It has a couple of interesting features. The first is this open point or hole. This open point indicates that this point itself is not part of the function, but the rest of the line extending from it is. And also this arrow indicates that this line extends in this direction. Let's consider the domain. So the domain is the set of all valid inputs or all possible x coordinates for this graph. Let's consider a few. At x equals -9, if we were to draw a dotted line above or below this point, we can see that it doesn't intersect with this curve. So consequently, x equals -9 is not a part of the function. It's not a valid input. However, x equals 2 is a valid input. It intersects with the curve here and it gives a valid output. In fact, all of the x values greater than x equals 4 are valid inputs for this equation and are part of the domain. However, the point x equals -4 is not. That's because we've got this open point here. So if we were to draw a dotted line above or below x equals 4, this hollow point indicates that x equals -4 does not intersect with the function here at all and isn't part of the domain. If we were to project this graph on the x-axis, we'd get a line like this. So we'd get an open point here at x equals -4, and we'd get an arrow at the end. And this would indicate that all these x values continuing on as x goes to infinity are part of the domain, but this point here, x equals -4, isn't. That means our domain is all real values of x such that x is greater than -4. Now notice I didn't write x is greater than or equal to -4 because x equals -4 is excluded here because of this open point. So this is the domain. Okay, let's consider the range. Well, the range is the set of possible outputs or possible y values for this function. Let's consider a few y values. At y equals -2, if we were to draw a dotted line through y equals -2, well, there's no intersection with the curve here. Consequently, y equals -2 is not a possible output. But at y equals 7, we do have an intersection with the curve, which means that if we were to input x equals 4, we would get y equals 7 as an output. So consequently, y equals 7 is part of the range. In fact, all y values greater than y equals 3 are part of this range. If we were to project this graph on the y-axis, this is the line segment that we'd get. We'd get an open point here, indicating that y equals 3 is not an output. In other words, this dotted line does not intersect with this function because this is an open point. But for all other values of y greater than 3, this function is defined, and this goes on as y approaches infinity. Consequently, the range of this function is y is greater than 3. And notice again that I've written greater than, not greater than or equal to, because y equals 3 is excluded from the range.